Ever feel like your phone battery's got this, like, personal vendetta against you? You know, the second you absolutely need it, boom, that little low battery warning pops up. Well, today we are diving deep into the world of smartphone batteries and figuring out how to outsmart those little buggers.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going way beyond the usual close your app stuff, right?
Yeah.
We're going to uncover the real secrets to making that phone power last.
It's amazing to me how many people, they use their phones every single day, multiple times a day, but how little they actually know about the battery that's powering the thing.
Right.
Like it's this kind of magical little rectangle that, we just expect to work.
Exactly. Okay, so you've been digging into a bunch of research on this. What's one thing that surprised you?
The biggest thing is how much we tend to blame the battery itself.
Okay.
When really, a lot of the time, it's how we're using our phones that's the problem.
Interesting. So it's not necessarily that the battery's bad, it's that we're using it wrong.
Often, yeah. And one of the biggest culprits is our apps. Even when you're not actively using them, a lot of those apps are still running in the background, eating up your battery life.
Oh, so you're talking about, like, I might close Instagram, but it's still doing stuff behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Social media apps are notorious for this because they're constantly checking for updates, sending you notifications, things like that. It's a constant drain on your battery.
So it's not just about how much I'm actually on the app, it's how much it's working even when I'm not looking at it.
You got it. And the good news is you have more control over this than you might think. If you go into your phone settings, you can actually see which apps have permission to refresh in the background.
Oh, so I don't have to just accept that they're going to be doing that all the time. I can actually change it.
Absolutely. Some apps you might want to allow background refresh for, like your email or messaging apps. But for others, like those games you only play occasionally, you can probably turn it off completely.
Okay, so it's about being more intentional, right? Like figuring out which apps I actually need to be working in the background.
Exactly. It's about taking control and customizing those settings to match how you use your phone.
I'll admit, I usually just ignore those settings menus, but maybe it's time I actually dive in and see what I can tweak.
I highly recommend it. Think of it this way. You wouldn't just drive your car without ever getting an oil change, right? You got to do a little maintenance to keep things running smoothly.
That's a good analogy. Okay, so besides those background apps, what else should we be looking at in our settings?
Another big one is location services. Incredibly useful, of course, but they can also be a major drain on your battery.
Oh yeah, location services, those are helpful, but man, they can suck the life out of your battery if you're not careful. But like, they're also how I find all the best restaurants and coffee shops.
Right, there's a trade-off. And it's not really about turning them off entirely, it's about using them strategically. Like, do you really need every single app on your phone to know your location all the time?
Okay, good point. Probably not. So besides just like disabling location services completely, are there other ways to manage them?
Yeah, definitely. One thing you can do is check if your phone has a reduced accuracy mode.
Reduced accuracy, what's that?
So instead of using GPS, which is super accurate but also uses a lot of power, it'll estimate your location based on your Wi-Fi network and cell towers.
So I'm still getting the location-based features, but without draining the battery as quickly?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good compromise.
Smart. Okay, now I want to talk about another thing that's always kind of baffled me. Heat. How much does heat really affect our phone batteries?
Heat, yeah, it's like the silent killer of smartphone batteries.
Okay, see, that's what I was thinking. Because we always hear, don't let your phone get too hot. But like, how big of a deal is it really?
It's a bigger deal than most people realize. I mean, everybody knows electronics and heat, they don't really mix.
Right.
But with your phone battery, it's not just that it might, temporarily not work as well if it gets too hot. The heat is actually causing long-term damage.
Whoa, really? I had no idea. I thought it was more like it just makes the battery drain faster in the moment.
It does that too. But over time, that heat exposure, it degrades the battery's lifespan. We're not talking about like leaving your phone in a furnace here. Just regular everyday heat can have an impact.
So like using my phone outside on a hot day, that's not good.
Not ideal. Direct sunlight is definitely something to avoid.
Okay.
But even inside, like if you leave your phone in a hot car, that could be really damaging too.
Makes sense. I'm already feeling guilty about all those times I was using my phone at the beach, like blasting music, screen brightness all the way up.
Yeah, not exactly doing your battery any favors when you do that.
Okay, good to know. So how does this work? Like, at the technical level, what's actually happening inside the battery when it gets too hot?
It's all about chemistry.
Okay.
Those lithium-ion batteries that power our phones, They have a limited number of charge cycles. Think of it like a lifespan,
Yeah.
right? And every time the battery heats up significantly, it's like using up some of those cycles. It speeds up the aging process.
Oh, so every time my phone gets hot, it's like I'm shaving a little bit of time off its total lifespan?
Essentially, yeah. And it's not always noticeable at first, but over time, those little bits of damage add up.
That's a good point. Okay, so besides the obvious things like, not leaving my phone in direct sunlight, what else can I do to keep things cool?
Well, you mentioned music earlier. Streaming music, especially over a cellular connection, that can generate a surprising amount of heat.
Oh, wow. Really? I had no idea.
Same goes for those graphically intense games.
Oh, yeah, those games that make your phone feel like a little space heater.
Exactly. And the thing is, even if your phone doesn't feel hot to the touch, those demanding tasks, they're still generating heat internally.
So it's like there's this whole hidden world of phone temperature that I'm not even aware of.
Pretty much, yeah. And you know what else is a major heat culprit? Charging.
Charging.
Really? Especially if you're using your phone for those really demanding tasks while it's plugged in.
Oh, right. Because it's like trying to charge the battery at the same time that it's working really hard.
Exactly. It's like trying to fill up your gas tank while you're driving down the highway. It's not impossible, but it's definitely not ideal.
That is a great analogy.
So it's fine to top off the battery here and there, but those longer charging sessions, especially while you're multitasking, it's best to give your phone a break if you can.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how to treat our batteries better, but what about all those, tech myths that are out there? Because our sources are full of these, I've heard it both ways, pieces of advice, and I'm never quite sure what to believe.
Oh yeah, the tech myths, they're everywhere, aren't they?
Okay, so let's start with a big one. Is it really bad to leave your phone charging overnight? Asking for a friend, of course.
We've all been there. The good news is modern phones are a lot smarter than they used to be. They have built-in safeguards that prevent them from overcharging, even if you leave them plugged in for hours.
Okay, that's reassuring. So no more worries about my phone, spontaneously combusting on my nightstand.
Probably not. But while those safeguards are there, it's still not ideal to leave your phone plugged in all night, every night. It's like keeping your car idling even when you've reached your destination, a little bit of unnecessary wear and tear.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not the end of the world, but it's still better to be in the habit of unplugged, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about the long game, right? Keeping that battery healthy for as long as possible.
Makes sense. Okay, what about this one? I've heard that you should completely drain your battery before recharging it. Something about calibrating it or something.
Ah, yes. The good old completely drain your battery myth. It's been around forever, and honestly, I'm not even sure where it came from.
I know, right? It seems like one of those things that people just say.
But the truth is, it's not only unnecessary, it can actually be harmful to your battery in the long run.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Lithium-ion batteries, they actually function best when you keep them topped up.
Interesting. So no need for those battery draining marathons.
Not at all. In fact, those deep discharges, those can actually put extra stress on the battery.
So what you're saying is it's actually better to keep my battery topped off than to let it drain all the way down.
Way better. Think of it like fueling your body. You wouldn't wait until you're totally out of energy to eat, right?
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Same thing with your phone battery. Keeping it within that sweet spot, say between 20 and 80%, that's going to help it last a lot longer.
This is great advice. Seriously, I'm learning so much from this deep dive. Okay, what other battery myths do we need to bust today?
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some broader tech myths, because our sources are full of them.
Ooh, I love a good tech myth bust. Lay it on me.
Okay, here's one that I see causing a lot of confusion. The idea that more megapixels automatically means better photos.
Oh, the megapixel myth. Yeah, I've totally fallen for that one myself. Every time I buy a new phone, I'm always looking for the one with the highest megapixel count. But you're telling me that's not the whole story?
Nope, not even close. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers game, but the reality is there's a lot more to photo quality than just megapixels.
Okay, so what else do I need to know?
Well, think of it this way. Megapixels, they just determine the resolution of the image, right? How many pixels are packed into that picture.
Right.
But the quality of those pixels, that's determined by things like the lens and the image processing software.
Ah, okay. So it's like having a really nice oven doesn't guarantee that you're going to bake a delicious cake. You need good ingredients too, right?
Exactly. It's about the whole package, not just one ingredient. And this applies to so many things in tech. not just cameras.
That's such a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in the hype of a single spec or feature.
Right.
But really understanding how all these different components work together, that's how you get the most out of your devices.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, my friend, even when it comes to something as seemingly simple as a smartphone.
Well said. Man, we have covered so much ground today. From the nitty-gritty of battery chemistry to debunking those pesky tech myths. Who knew there was so much to learn about keeping our phones powered up and running smoothly?
It's all about being curious, right? Asking those why questions. And the more you understand about how your devices actually work, the more empowered you'll be to use them effectively.
I love that. Knowledge is power. Now, if only someone would invent a phone battery that lasts a full week on a single charge.
Right. We can dream.
Until then, we'll keep sharing these deep dive tips and tricks to help you stay powered up and informed. Thanks for listening, everyone.